Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's getting warmer. It's about 40 degrees now. And I'm out early because I didn't get a chance to do any walking yesterday. I spent too much energy getting ready to and arguing in the court. And I had some other assignments in Washington, D.C. So the Jefferson report today is 40 degrees. It'll be in the 50s even. The roads are a little slippery. And I look forward to it getting even warmer still. So today is the day after New Hampshire. The concern I have, and I've repeated this before so you know my thinking about it, you can't win the argument you don't make. It's especially true at law, but it's also true in politics. But it presumes something that we're losing in America. It presumes a kind of rationalism, if you will. We began our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution in the period of the Enlightenment, the heightened use of reason, its reliability, not to the exclusion of emotion and passion and high-minded idealism, but still with reason. There's a woman who's very articulate on this subject, and she sort of picks up where Hofstadter left off, and in the sense that Hofstadter wrote about the anti-intellectual strain in America. And Susan Jacoby has picked up on this in a book she wrote several years ago called The Age of American Unreason. And what she's talking about is a kind of semi-conscious anti-rationalism, which I think dictates chaos. It feeds on impulse. It leads to strange and irrational approaches and concepts. Now, you might think that's too strong, but it's hard to deny it when example number one is Trump. And those who fight him by trying to claim they hold the same positions he has and they're not indicted. But that doesn't matter to the anti-intellectual, unreasonable masses that surround Trump. Now, a good example of this is, of course, in most recent days, both Iowa and New Hampshire. And we see that there, according to the voters in New Hampshire, in one poll, that Trump would be fit to be president if convicted. Now, when we're dealing with Iowa and we're dealing with New Hampshire, we're dealing with a class of votes that may not inform us as to how America all feels. But it's not something that we can ignore. And we have to keep in mind that the expression that we see in the vote is those who voted for Nikki Haley. And they voted for her as a protest and to stop him. And she, in a way, represents a better presented view of the Trump material because she gets to the same place, but she does it more elegantly. She's thoughtful. It's interesting that in the Republican Party, who have abused women so badly, that she's the challenge. Or, that's very logical, because there are women among Republicans and the other voters, the independents and the dissatisfied R's in New Hampshire, who are concerned about these issues, as they well should be. The independents in the vote in New Hampshire, 66% of them went against Trump. The Republicans, there was a 19%. So there is this gap. But we as citizens and as political leaders and as the candidate Biden, we have to look at this. We cannot assume that there is some safety barrier in which reason will reassert itself and go forward. Now, Haley is still in it, as far as I know, and is going to probably ride this out at least to South Carolina, and then perhaps even after that to Super Tuesday, to see what she can do on that day. So the Republicans have their trouble. But keep in mind that Nikki, if she actually did get the nomination, might be a more challenging opponent than Trump. It's very hard to say, because she has a measure and uses it of reason, that ability that seems to escape other Republicans who want to be the nominee. So it's a very interesting political problem. Now the Democrats have a different problem, and maybe so does Trump, because Manchin is hinting at a third party run himself. So you see the chaos is evident and all around us. And it's something that we have to work through, because there are, among the anti-rational, crazed, MAGA mania supporters, this belief that Trump is good no matter how flawed he is by ordinary standards. Gary Hart has an affair and he's out of a presidential contest. This guy is everywhere and indicted 91 times, 4 different indictments in several jurisdictions, winning nothing in the civil suits either. And yet, against all imagined ways to review a politician, he continues to have the support in his party. So we have Haley is in it to stay for now. And we as citizens have to look closely about this, because it augurs ill for our nation when we've left reason behind. We no longer subscribe to enlightenment, and we embrace the chaos that can only result given this set of facts. Now, yesterday I argued an appeal in the U.S. Circuit Court for the District of Columbia, and I had 3 judges, as occurs, in a panel, and the argument really was, and I'll be brief because people have asked me about it, and I know you may not all be interested in it, but you should be, because in a way we are all going to have to face some pain in our life, and hopefully it won't be chronic, it won't be intractable, it won't compromise our ability to function. But many people suffer exactly this, and the medication they receive is truly medication. It heals. And we have doctors who are resisting a government that understands nothing about pain medication. A Tylenol is too much for some, and this is not an exaggeration. I've had those conversations with people from the government. So we have 240 patients on a single day who were patients of Dr. Bacoff in California. And DEA said, we think you're not doing it right, because they don't embrace the notion that you titrate to some level of bearable pain in order to function. And DEA does not accept that principle. And sort of like a hammer sees a nail, every doctor who gives pain medication is suspect, which creates a real problem for patients who need pain medication to get it. And so we're arguing that when you take away, in a summary fashion, the prescription authority of a doctor, you cast all of those patients who rely on treatment and the medication to survive. And several patients came to the court yesterday, but most could not, and they're spread across the nation. Of the 11 that originally filed to intervene to be heard on this matter, and the DEA closed proceeding, 2 have already died. And before we started, while we were still discussing how we might appeal the ruling of the DEA in the secret proceedings, there was a couple, the patient and the caretaker, and having gone through this before when they were denied pain medication, they committed suicide, and there was no question about it because they used a gun. And I think that that was conscious, because they didn't want somebody saying, oh, they just somehow or other got drugs and they OD'd, they overdosed. So the easy way to handle our appeal, in the sense of getting rid of it and not redressing the problems that pain patients have, is to say, oh, there isn't a final decision in the case. How can you come here yet? And this is a jurisdictional question, but there are statutory provisions that provide otherwise. And it's really a test of will, because there are the instruments of relief, and them there are statutes. And one of the judges on the panel, who asked a series of questions of myself and then of the government, she gets it, and that doesn't mean everybody else did not. And it doesn't mean that what opinions may have been expressed in the oral argument will become the opinion. Well, when I say opinion, the questions allow us to infer that there might be a conclusion favorable, but we don't know that until the opinion is actually written. And I can't say when that would be. If they thought what we had to say was frivolous, it could happen in a day. If they take it serious, it could take longer than that. And they will have to slice and dice how they give us relief and narrow the outcome. So I didn't tend to speak so much about this, but years ago, I was called upon to represent a patient in Florida who had mind-numbing pain that didn't give up, like his legs were on fire if he didn't have prescriptions. And he did. And when they brought me in the case after he'd been convicted, I said, you cannot make illness, which is what we have here, a crime, and that's what you've done. And the prescriptions that he got were properly issued. And the government's answer was, no, they weren't, and so therefore the possession of these drugs is criminal and unlawful itself, and so he, Richard Pay, could be convicted based on that. One of the 3 judges that I appeared before on the appeal agreed with me, but I couldn't get anybody else in the court to agree with me. So then I sought clemency, and we asked for an early hearing because he was given 25 years under mandatory minimums. And he had to spend like a third of that time before we could make that motion, unless we got leave to do that. And we did get leave to do that. And then I argued before the cabinet in Florida that he should be allowed clemency, because otherwise we were punishing an illness, not a crime. And the governor of the state asked me, did I have any objection to a summary clemency effective that date, releasing Richard from jail? And I had a sorry view of our system of justice on that day, until I heard the governor say that. And the whole room cheered, because it was filled with people who were there seeking relief. And friends of mine from the Innocence Project sent me some nice comments. And the wife of my client, who was in custody at the time, she, when everybody was cheering, she said, I feel like I'm at a Rocky movie. So justice can be delivered, but it's almost never a change in the pattern without a fight and an argument to get there. And that's where we are. And I'm hoping we're going to break through and have the nation look at the pain patients that they're casting into a misery that rivals any hell you can imagine on earth. And this is real hell because it is on earth. It is now. It's not a myth. It's a sufferance. And it's being done by humans who pretend to give a damn about people. And I'm talking about our government. I wrote a book years ago, Pain in America, and how our government makes it worse. So this case is to try to make it better for pain patients, and hopefully it'll work out. So, all the best, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Holly and I are going to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins today for tests. There's no emergency. We do these from time to time to detect if there's anything we should do to modify our medications or our practices. And so I guess you can compare something like people who require insulin. You have to monitor yourself like a laboratory in order to enjoy functioning in life. And Holly's been a real star, as you all know. So, all the best. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.